Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Allen, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. And this is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk about hockey. And today feels like Christmas morning if you are a hockey fan, because it's trade deadline day. It's almost a national holiday, Tom, in Canada. They have gavel-to-gavel coverage like it's a political convention, and there's a lot of excitement, although most of the action, Tom, has already happened.
Oh, and some good stuff too. We were just talking before the show. Eric, good to see you, by the way.
Yeah, good to be here.
We were just saying before the show, I really love what Toronto's done. I think the Foligno, they talk about character guys. He's one of the most character guys around the National Hockey League, I think. So I think Toronto took a huge step forward. Remember, it's a unique season too, right? So if they really think that they can win that division in the playoffs, that takes them right to the semifinals. So it gives you a pretty good shot of winning. Obviously, they've got a talented team too, so I like it a lot. Yeah,
well, that's a segue for us to jump into our special guest, Eric Erlandson of lightninginsider.com. We've had him on a couple of my podcasts before because he is a very insightful reporter for the covering the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Eric, they pulled off, I always say, like, if there's one kind of slick move, well, maybe you're lucky, and I say that because Julian Brisebois, everybody said, oh boy, he's going to have to lose some of his depth to solve the salary cap problems in the offseason, but he didn't. He found a creative way to get around it, and he's done it again. People said he had no room to make a big move, and he made a huge move by being a little bit creative.
Yeah, it's a masterclass in salary cap management. It's unbelievable to be able to find a way to bring in a player like David Savard, who they really needed. I mean, there was one area, I think I talked to you guys about this earlier in the year. The one area that they were sort of thin was on the right side on defense. And if you look the last couple of weeks, they've been without Eric Chernak, and Jan Ruda is now out. So you've taken two of their four right-handed shot defensemen out of the lineup, and that left you with Cal Foote and Luke Shen. So they needed some help on the right side if they wanted to have another run at a cup. And to be able to pull this off, a player who's making $4.25 million against a salary cap, heavy price, obviously giving up a first-round draft pick and then a couple other picks involved as well. But he's going to fit in so well with what this team wants to do. He's that prototypical defensive defenseman. He takes a lot of face-offs in the defensive zone, plays that sort of style of game. And for Julian to be able to do this with the minimal salary cap space he had, and he even said it back in February about the halfway point of the season. Look, people should temper their expectations on the trade deadline for us because we have no cap space, and it's going to have to be player in, player out. And here he was able to bring in a player of David Savard's caliber without taking a player off the roster. And I think that's a huge, huge boost to this team. And I think it's going to help them, emotionally in terms of getting ready for the playoffs, knowing that they've got some help back there.
Well, first of all, Eric, you're showing off there with that nice blue microphone and everything too, right? Like Tampa colors a little bit. That's good. I like that. Showing off. So, all right. So Tampa obviously has got to be the team you look at to say around the league that they should win the favorites to win the cup, I guess, more because they won last year. But look at that division now since we talked last. I mean, Carolina was playing well. Florida was playing well. But man, that's a tight division now. Does the Tampa Bay team really feel like they should win, or are they overconfident, confident enough, or where they at?
Well, they're definitely not going to be overconfident. They're probably a little bit looser after having played under pressure to win the cup last year, right? Because they'd been so good for, 5-6 years and expectations were so high. Now I think there's a little bit more of a business approach to it, if you will, that, hey, we know that we're a good team. We can go out and do it. But this division is tight. Carolina has just been fantastic from start to finish, and that's with losing Peter Mrazek for a number of weeks to that broken thumb. And Florida is so much more improved, and and the moves that they've been able to pull off to this point, they're going to be a difficult team. For the Lightning, there's a lot of discussion. Do you want to finish first in this division because of whoever that fourth team is going to be? It's currently Nashville. It could be Dallas. It could be Chicago. Is there an advantage for finishing first in this division? I don't think the Lightning look at it that way. I think their whole goal is just let's make the playoffs, and we'll take care of business after that. So there's certainly no overconfidence with this team. And really, there's some things that they need to shore up right now. They've been a little loose defensively. Maybe the addition of David Savard will help them with that as they look towards the playoffs. But this is a team that just they now know how to win because they've done it. They understand what it's going to take once they get to the postseason. It doesn't matter who they play.
Eric, I want to talk to you about the other acquisition that we're going to have at the after the trade deadline, and that's a guy that the Lightning fans are familiar with, Kucherov. Boy, what a bonus it is to add a player of his caliber for the playoffs. I mean, that's the assumption that he'll be ready for the playoffs. Is there any problem with that thinking that he'll be ready to go?
Not on the timeline that he's on. He is back skating. He's not practicing with the team. He's been out there for some, a morning skate here or there or some informal skates, but he's not back practicing with the team. But the hip surgery that he did have, it was a 4 to 5 month timeline. He had it just after Christmas. So the 4 months is towards the end of April. The 5 month mark is obviously towards the end of May. So they're looking at some point in between there. Given recent history with Braden Point, who had that same surgery 2 summers ago, he had it in May. He wasn't back until the middle of October. I think his first game back was October 10th. He actually missed the first 3 games of the season because of it. So in that time frame, everything appears to be on track. And you're right. What a boost that can be to a team. It's one thing to bring in a player like David Savard, to help shore up your back end, but to bring in an MVP, a guy who had 128 points just a couple of seasons ago, and what he can do with the puck and how he can help the power play. And there's so many areas that Nikita Kucherov is a big part of this team. And they're so deep, they've been able to sort of absorb his loss because of how much talent they do have. But then you're going to interject him back into the lineup. They hope for the playoffs. I mean, everything appears to be back on track under that timeline. And if that's the case, boy, that's a huge addition to a team that's already, been atop of the league standings for a good portion of the year.
That's funny, man. I kind of forgot about him. You forget about Kucherov. That's a pretty good hockey team. Speaking of injuries and players coming back, how was Steven Stamkos done?
Yeah, so he missed a game the other night. They expect that he's probably going to be out maybe at least the rest of this week. They're waiting for the team to return home to get a little bit more further evaluation. And I think what has to worry you is the reason he left the game against Columbus was it was a non-contact injury, right? Like he kind of stretched for a play, given the fact that he had that sports hernia surgery not once but twice last year. I think you have to be a little concerned, but it doesn't sound like it's necessarily that bad. Nobody's answering the question whether it's related to the surgery he had last year. So again, they're waiting more medical information before they can kind of come to a conclusion. But it sounds like it could only be, for this week. And with this team, they err on the side of caution with so much when it comes to injuries that, John Cooper did say some of this is precaution as well. So I think there's some cautioned optimism in terms of what he's going to be able to come back, when he's going to be able to come back. And hopefully it's not a long-term thing because he does lead the team in goals. He's obviously a presence over there in the power play. He's a 58% face-off guy, right? Like he's not just the shooter anymore. He's evolved his game to the point where he's so important in so much other areas than just that, familiar spot on the power play.
Yeah, Eric, I don't believe in the phrase injury prone, but Steven Stamkos has got to be one of the most unluckiest superstars in the league. He just, how many times has injuries gotten him at an inopportune time? It's just absolutely amazing. But I wanted to get your thoughts on the 2 teams that we mentioned before. You talked about how the Lightning feel about being pressed by the Panthers and by Carolina Hurricanes. But what's your read on those teams? I mean, obviously, both those teams have risen up this season. They've played very well. Carolina has had its way with Florida, as everyone knows. But how do you read whether or not these are 2 very serious contenders or not?
Carolina for sure. Boy, you look at the makeup of their roster, especially what they have on the back end with Slavin and Pesce and Dougie Hamilton and the group that they have on the back end. And, Sebastian Aho is an MVP candidate, and, Andrei Svechnikov has taken another step. And again, they're a team that's deep. They got 4 lines that just come at you. And the way that Rod Brind'Amour plays, it's just in your face puck pursuit, similar to the Penguins, around 2016, 2017, when they were just kind of playing that same style of game. So if they get the goaltending, and I think that's the biggest question with the Carolina Hurricanes. Can you get dependable goaltending when it matters, whether it's Mrazek, whether it's Reimer, whether it's Alex Nedeljkovic? They are a tough team to play. They've given Tampa Bay fits this year. The Lightning certainly have won, I think, 3 of the 6 games. I think it's been split. But they are a tough team to play because of the style that they play. They're in your face. They move the puck. They're a shot volume team. They really throw everything on net and make it difficult in your own end. And the Panthers, boy, I sure hope we get a Florida-Tampa Bay playoff series of some caliber, whether it's round 1 or round 2, because we've been waiting for this for a long time, for this to happen in the state for it. It looks like there's a good chance it could this year. Sasha Barkov is quietly having an MVP caliber year for the Florida Panthers, even with the time he missed because of injury. The addition of Carter Verhaeghe, who we're very familiar with here in Tampa Bay, he's taken another step in getting an additional ice time, which he was going to have a hard time getting here just because of how deep this team is. He's thrived on that first line. But again, the question with the Panthers is what kind of goaltending are you going to get? Are you going to get Vezina Trophy Sergei Bobrovsky, or are you going to get .890 save percentage Sergei Bobrovsky? And I think it has to worry Florida a little bit in terms of what they're going to be able to do in the postseason. I think if we're ranking those two teams, I think Carolina's probably a step ahead of Florida right now. But Florida, again, has had a great year, and they've got some depth that maybe they haven't had in the past.
Those are good matchups too. If Nashville makes it into the playoffs and Tampa gets first place, that means they're playing Nashville. That's a team that's really, I was very critical of them early. I didn't think they'd even get to a playoff spot. Now they're creeping up there now. It looks like they've got. What's the matchup like between Tampa and Nashville? How they played together?
Well, they've played 7 times this year. Tampa Bay has won 6 of them, but they haven't been runaway games, right? There's been a couple of games where the Lightning have been up 3 goals, and all of a sudden Nashville makes it a 1-goal game. And again, Nashville's a team that can come at you. They get matched up the other night. They had 18 shots in the first period. We're basically skating circles around the Lightning in the Tampa Bay zone. So they have that capability, and that kind of goes back to the question: is there a reward for finishing first in this division? Well, if you have to face Nashville with the way UC Saros is playing in net, they've won. They won again last night against Dallas, so they've won 10 of their last 11 games. Is that a reward if you finish first in this division? That's why I don't think it really matters at this point where you go. But the Predators, again, with Roman Josi and Matthias Ekholm and Ryan Ellis is back healthy. They were quiet. They were going to be a seller at the deadline. Like, they were talking about trading everybody, Philip Forsberg and Matthias Ekholm, and all of a sudden, not only are they in a playoff spot, they've got a little separation in a playoff spot. So could be very interesting. Whoever matches up, if Nashville grabs that number 4 spot, they're going to be a difficult team just because of how confident they're playing. Eric,
one of the reasons why we haven't seen repeat champions very often. I've always felt this, just trying to maintain the hunger. When you're trying to win that first one, when you haven't won in a while for some teams, you're driven. But coming back, I remember Jim Rutherford said it's like climbing Mount Everest and then coming back in September and saying, all right, we're going to climb it again. The knowledge of how difficult the climb was is still there. And so the Lightning kind of know that. And it always sort of manifests in periods where during the next regular season when they don't play very well. And it seemed like Tampa was just in one of those recently. And I saw John Cooper was just kind of talking about how disappointing it was that the team wasn't playing sharp. Do you think they've gotten through that? I think they'd lost 2 or 3 in a row and they just weren't playing very well. Or where is the team at now mentally in preparing for the playoffs?
I think they're ready for the playoffs to begin. Right, I think they're a typical team that's coming off a championship. They had a great start to the year. I think through the middle of March, they only lost 6 games in regulation before they hit that little 7-game slide there. They only had 2 wins in 7 games. I just think, I hate to use the term bored, but in some ways you wonder if they're just bored and they're just ready to start the playoffs. So I think these last 15 games is going to be an opportunity for them to kind of shore up some things defensively that they do need to work on. But I look at a guy like Steven Stamkos, the captain of this team. He's been the face of the franchise now for 12, 13 years. Like, he only got the 1 game in the postseason. Very memorable. Gave the team a hell of a moment with the goal there in Game 3 after missing all that time. And then, 2 minutes and 57 seconds that he played in Game 3. you want to talk about a guy who has hunger. Yeah, he has his name on the cup, and he was able to lift the cup over his head, but he wasn't the type of contributor he wanted to be. And I think that's something that drives him. And by driving him, I think that helps drive the team as well, because he is such a great leader in that room. He has such respect from the rest of his teammates in that room. I think that is something that kind of, look, I'm not saying they're going to win a cup, but it's something that could push them, right? You're looking for motivation to try and get back to it and do it again the next year. And on top of that, the Nikita Kucherov injury covered up the salary cap problems that the team has, and they've had plenty of salary cap problems this year, even with Nikita Kucherov injured. All his injury did was kick the can down the road, because they're going to have the same situation next year. Now, they don't have the same type of players they have to resign like they did with Mikhail Sergachev and Anthony Cirelli this offseason, but you're probably not going to be able to re-sign Blake Coleman. You're probably not going to be able to sign Barclay Goodrow. David Savard's probably not going to be able to be re-signed. So there's a little bit of a sense of urgency as well, that, we don't know what the roster is going to look like next year. So that can serve as some motivation, just as it kind of did last year.
All right, Eric. Well, we appreciate having you on, as always. Our time is up. I'm sure you're going to be busy today. I'm assuming the Lightning are done, but maybe not. What do you think?
We assumed that they weren't going to be able to do anything to begin with, and they land David Savard. It would take some serious cap gymnastics for Julian to try and figure out something, but you can't rule anything out. As he said on Saturday, my phone's not going to turn off between now and the trade deadline, so if there's something there, they'll do it. It would take some massaging for sure, so I don't anticipate it, but you never know.
All right. Well, Eric, again, thanks a lot, and make sure you guys check out Eric's website. He certainly knows the Lightning better than most of the people around. So thank you.
He's good. He knows that whole division pretty well too. And you know what, Kevin? We're gonna have to pick up our game next time we have him on. We'll get our microphones color coordinated like he is too. So
yeah, for sure. Eric, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate the time.
Bye.
All right, that was Eric Harrelson. And Tom, it's worth paying the price to get, Eric's, behind the paywall subscription. And what's it? And I bring that up because I don't know what it is, but, Tampa Bay Lightning, they are not maybe, I think they are the most talented team in the league. Like, they have a lot of talent, and they have a lot of, top players, Hedman, Vasilevsky, Stamkos, Kucherov. And yet they don't get a lot of national coverage. If you want to follow that team, I think you need to, jump in and, pay a little bit. It's not that much per month to read about the Lightning. But I want to launch our discussion, Tom, with discussion on the Nashville Predators, because it's a complicated situation. Like and I didn't want to, because I wanted to go in a different direction. I didn't want to bring it up while I was on, but I'm going to dispute the idea that it's not an advantage to play the Nashville Predators. That Nashville team, as impressive as they've been lately, they're like they only lost 3 games against the bottom 3 teams in the league, but they're 6-15 against the top 3 teams.
Right.
Like, they haven't played very well. Now, here's my only caution. Like, I think it is an advantage. I think if I'm one of those 3 teams, I wouldn't say it publicly, but I would be thinking I'd rather play the Predators, okay, just because they haven't shown me that they're a true Stanley Cup. But one thing worries me. Is their goaltending, the way Saros has played lately, better than the goaltending in Carolina and in Florida? Now, in Florida, we've had an inconsistency. We haven't had that actually in Carolina. Their goalies have actually played pretty well, but we don't seem to believe in them. We don't believe in Mrazek.
No.
So,
well, here's why, and I hear what you're saying totally. If you look at the way they played, you're not that good. But when I look at that team, this has been my problem with this team in Nashville, that they should be a lot better. And if they finally have figured it out some way, whether it's the character portion of it, the culture, whatever it is, to play to their potential, then no, I do not want to play them. I think they're a really good hockey team. But that's the question. Obviously, it looks like they have figured out something. Is this just a streak of luck here that they've got going right now? But if they can play the way they can, I don't want to play the Nashville Predators. And to me, if I, as an athlete, knowing that we have not played as well as we should have as a group, then there's some pride there too, to say, okay, guys, now we figured it out here. Let's show everybody how good we really are. Let's keep the band together, right? Because all the talk was about making all these trades. Well, now if they continue to play well, obviously, deadlines today. So David Poyle's got. I mean, to me, the decision is made. You can't start making trades now the way they're playing, and they're in a playoff spot. So I wouldn't want to play Tampa or Nashville.
Well, but the question is not whether you want to play them. Is would you rather play them or not play them over Carolina or Florida? So you would rather play Florida?
You know what? I wouldn't say I'd want to take any one of those teams on. I think all three of them are good. For different reasons, though. I think that Carolina legitimately is a good hockey team that plays hard all the time. They get the most out of that team.
Yeah.
Rod Brind'Amour does a fantastic job. The goaltending has been good enough. Florida, to me, the question marks are more with Florida, especially with goaltender. Like Eric said, what are you going to get? I just think with Nashville, the goaltending, I'm pretty certain that goaltending is for real. So I guess the team that I would want to play the most would be Florida.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't want to do that. Barkov, Nashville doesn't have anybody to play with Barkov. Huberdeau has been a far more consistent player than anyone that you're totally right. When you say the word consistent, you're totally right on that. But that's the thing with Nashville. They have not been consistent, but if they're finally figured it out or playing the way they should play. Yeah. And they just haven't had much luck. I don't think that comes overnight. Now, the one advantage that Nashville has is they do have Forsberg's coming back. Yep. Duchesne, one of your favorite players, is coming back.
He's been out, I forgot.
And right, I'm being sarcastic, folks. And Ellis is coming back. At least David Poyle said that on a radio show, I think about a week ago, that right after the trade deadline.
Pretty good players to add to your lineup when you're already doing well.
Well, that's like, even if he doesn't do anything at the trade deadline, and he might not, then, you're sort of still helping your team there with that kind of situation. So, I always believe, like, this is not the NBA where you don't get any upsets. Like if Nashville played Tampa in 10 7-game series over a span of 2 months, Nashville might win one of those.
Yes,
because this is the NHL. Yep. And every series takes on its own.
Right. Columbus beat Tampa 4 straight 2 years ago, right?
Sure. So I realize that, but still, Tampa's a better team. We all know that. We think that they'd win most of the time. So I guess what I would say is, if Carolina played Nashville, they might win 8 out of 10 times. So what we're saying maybe is that Florida might only win 7.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the way it looks. Well, tell me about last night. The Islanders beat the Rangers. They made it close. It was 3-2, right?
Right. Yep.
And ended up. But a team that you and I both like and really respect, I think Sweeney has done a terrific job, is the Boston Bruins. And boy, they're the team that does not look good right now.
No, I know. Like the decision, and we've talked many times. They were one of my favorite teams from top to bottom. General manager, coach, everything, players. But man, if you look at what's happened since last year, and if I should be careful who I talk to, but apparently with both Chara and Krug that they lost, they basically just let them go. There's really very little effort to re-sign those players. Those 2 key players. I know Chara is getting older, but Krug was one of their top 2 or 3 defensemen on the team, and just let him go. And now you go and make a trade for a guy in Taylor Hall that I don't know.
Another one of your favorite players. Now, which one do you like better, Duchesne or Taylor Hall?
You know what? I've seen more character from Taylor Hall. And I just haven't seen that from Duchesne. And I don't know the man, don't sit in the locker room with him, so I don't know exactly what he is. But Boston, I'm like, okay, so let's see what we've got. So the team that we all thought was such a contender for the past probably 3 or 4 years has now lost Chara, Krug. So that's 2 of your top 3 defensemen. They still got Charlie McAvoy. And they've added a guy in the lineup to Taylor Hall that has declined. I saw the stats they were showing the other day, how since the season that he got MVP, his statistics have declined every year. So I guess you're taking a shot. Basically, it's him for a 2nd-round draft pick. I know there's 2 other players involved, but like you're taking a shot at it. But to me, it's a shot that goes like, what does that say to the rest of the unit there? I mean, you bring him in and he continues to play the way he's been playing, and nothing gets done. You go, okay, thanks a lot, Joe Manager. You didn't do anything for us. So
yeah, Yeah, I don't know. And the other thing is, like, should we commend Columbus because they've squeezed 2 first-round picks out of Foligno and Savard? Or should we say, you're a disaster because you didn't make the playoffs?
Well, and this is awful because from everything I've heard, Karkalainen, like obviously his name the wrong way, the general manager there is really good at his job, and he appears to have done some good things in the past. But now you're saying to the fan base and the team and everything, and I'm assuming they're going to make some more trades there today, if they can get something for some of the guys. But you're saying, okay, now we're regrouping again. We're starting all over again, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know all the details from in the back rooms there and everything, but just when you're trading away your Foligno, your captain, Savard, yes, our top 3 defensemen on the team, and the whole Dubois thing from earlier in the year, and Patrick Laine isn't exactly lighting it up there now. It's just like what is the future for this team? That's my point.
Yeah. I don't think Dubois has played particularly well in Winnipeg either.
No, you're right. Yep.
That's a team that hurt both teams.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what happened there. I don't know. That's, for the lack of a better word, that's a mess now in Columbus.
Yeah.
It's a mess because Tortorella now, and I just don't see him going quietly into the night.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen there. And you got Werenski coming up. You've got Seth Jones coming up.
So that's the thing. You've got those 2 great young defensemen.
Yeah.
And now you're regrouping again.
And you got to get them signed. Is Columbus the Winnipeg of the U.S. where, and I don't understand that. Like Columbus is a great place. And mostly I say this as a joke because, I like the Winnipeg just as an organization and everything else. But I think it's just so darn cold in Winnipeg. People, don't want to go there.
That is true.
It's a smaller market. It's cold. And, there are just some other enticements. But what's wrong with Columbus? It's a smaller market, but it's a nice little community. Yeah. It's a lot of fun there, a lot of nightlife there.
But if you think about it, if you're a high-end free agent and you're looking around for a place to sign, and I hate to say this because I like a lot of things he does, but one of the negatives there in Columbus is John Tortorella.
Yeah.
The high-end guys, we talk about, that's really not his thing, right? He wants everybody, he wants all 12 forwards blocking shots, and that's just not always what these top guys are made to do, right?
Well, it's tiring. His style is tiring. I'm with you about John Tortorella. He's always treated me well. My grandmother taught me, treat people the way they treat you. He's always treated me fine. So I don't have any issues with it. But I don't know. People say, I have talked to, and I've said this before, I've talked to several players who really have enjoyed the Tortorella experience.
Yep.
Some people like it. I mean, they want, they appreciate it. Always when a coach is hard on players, there's somebody on the team, and this is true, who will be in that office telling that coach, "Thanks for doing that."
Yeah.
I want, guys are fooling around. I want to be part of a disciplined team.
Absolutely. And, I was the same way with Herb Brooks, right? We talked about it before, but I didn't always like Herb when he coached me, but I look back now and I see how much he did for me as a player and as a person. And I love the man for what he did. Right. And I think Tortorella is exactly that same way. When you're getting yelled at, you don't sit there and say, "Oh, thank you, John. I really appreciate it." But you look back at it, it's good. Yeah.
Thank you, John. Yeah.
Thanks, Herb. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for browbeating me. Thanks for demeaning me. Yeah. So
we feel good at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but here's the flip side. The 2 teams that I think have really done a great job so far going up to the trade deadline in Toronto and the New York Islanders. Because the Islanders lineup now. Man.
Yeah. No, I said that before. I think I said going into the weekend that I didn't think anybody could surpass what Lou Lamoriello did. And I think Tampa Bay did. But you know what? We're splitting hairs there. Because, and I just wrote this like literally 3 minutes before I came on the air. I wrote, Lou Lamoriello didn't get to be in charge of an NHL team at age 76 because he sat on his hands.
Yes, very true.
He is not a guy who sits on his hands.
Yep.
He is a aggressive general manager, and he did it again. He went out. He identified who he wanted, and this is precision bombing here. He went out and got exactly what he needed. Kyle Palmieri is a consistent scorer.
Yep.
You know what you're getting from him. Yep. He does what he's supposed to do. He scores. He's not going to score 40 goals, but he's going to give you the goals you need.
And a two-way player, good defensively. Same with Zajac. Yep.
Yeah, and Zajac is a savvy guy. Yeah, he's a Trotz type player. 53% face-off guy.
Right. And I'm going to do some digging. We should find out too. Does Anders Lee? Does he make it back in time for the playoffs too? I mean, that's another addition. Unlike just like Kucherov in Tampa, where if you can add those guys back to your lineup, that's pretty tough. Yeah.
Well, and the Islanders have been hanging around all season up near the top.
Right.
And the other thing too, and this is another team that you like.
Sorry, Kevin. Ron Gresser's getting a little bored again.
Herb stepfather. Well, there's another team that is in the Taylor Hall, Steve Duchesne category, and that would be the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah.
And no matter what's happened to them, they're still like 2 points out of first place.
I know. And getting Carter, right? I was really surprised by that trade. I know in the past Carter had a no move clause. He didn't want to go anywhere.
And he didn't want to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But what I love about the Penguins? If you're the Penguins, you don't get a depth defenseman for a fourth rounder. You gotta go big or you go home.
Yeah.
And they got something. And Rutherford's gone. There's no Jim Rutherford there, but all of a sudden they got Jeff Carter.
Sure. And you think about the connection there, right, too, with Hextall, the GM there now, had been working with the Los Angeles Kings. So I'm sure he had some kind of a relationship with Carter there, too. So and I guess they'd probably in Philly together, too, probably,
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go back and sort of sort that all out. But, I like that move, and I like the fact that they don't fool around. And, I wondered whether they would do anything because Ronnie Hextall has been conservative as a general manager. He doesn't like to trade his draft picks. And I think the Penguins actually needed kind of a conservative guy because it won't be long before Sidney Crosby and Malkin are gone. They're going to need a guy who values draft picks, in that role. But they also have Brian Burke there, who is ultra aggressive. Now, who's more powerful than the King? It's the bishop who's whispering in the King's ear. So,
and you wonder if Hextall probably, he's a competitive guy. Did he learn and say, well, maybe I do need to be a little bit more aggressive than I was in Philadelphia, right? Maybe I can't wait that long. Right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good tandem. I've talked to people, and people are talking to Hexy, not to Brian Burke. But, I'm sure, and Burke and the Hextall are friends, and I'm sure he's providing some wisdom. Brian Burke is 65 years old. He's been around a while now.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he can provide some.
We just start getting smart in our mid-60s. That's when we start getting smart.
Well, for sure. Like you got so smart and you started getting up at 3:30 in the morning. I might consider myself dumb if I got up at 3:30.
So there's some people don't think I'm too smart getting up at 3:30 in the morning. But.
All right. Well, I've got other podcasts to do today, and Tom's going to join us as well. In fact, if you got a chance, tune in to the hockeybuzz.com as my dogs start playing right on cue. And 12:30, Tom Ladle is going to join us, talk about the East and the New York Rangers, and we're going to have other guests as well. We'll be on for 3 hours from 12 to 3 on hockeybuzz.com.
Excellent. All right. And if you guys want to see or listen to the radio version of this show, you go to 365sports@radio.co. And we'll see you guys on Wednesday.